Well, it's Thursday, the first day of the Albany show. We didn't make the cut. Got some excuses, but I really just didn't leave myself enough time. And then I found one hang up that even if we did get everything together, wouldn't have been done in time. So kind of stopped with the rush. So I will roll a clip as pretext and then jump back in and explain what the major hang up is. And then we'll roll clips of progress the last couple of weeks. Working on some more arts and crafts. So out of all the gaskets that I have to make, because you can't buy any, the exhaust ones I can't make because I don't have the material for it. So what I'm doing is I'm making a set out of regular gasket material, and I will mail these to Olson Gasket in Washington, and they will make me high temp ones, which are graphite with a steel core. One little thing that I like to do is tap in the center is where I start with a hammer, following the edge, because it will pull some material in and then work your way out from there. So Olson Gaskets, Washington, state of Washington. They'll make anything you want. It's a nice resource for the odd stuff. Figured I'd mention that in case somebody didn't know they existed. So Olson got my gaskets turned around about a week and a half. So that wasn't a hang up. These are the high temp ones. They do a great job shipping. It's on a piece of wood, so UPS can't bend it. The other thing that they sell are these copper sealing rings. And we need those to seal the valve port plugs against the block. So there's a ridge in here. When this screws into the block, that has to seal against this edge. Problem is, these are an oddball size. And guys at Olson are fantastic. He ran me a copy of his original Victor parts book, got me the exact dimensions, the part number for a Waukesha, and confirmed that they don't make these. Nobody made them. They haven't made them in years. Really, there's no resource for them. So the ones that are made, I'll pull the plug back. They're like 2 1/4 by 2 1/2 is the closest size. And they have some like filling in them for crushing. And the ones that are available that are closest, you absolutely cannot get them threaded over the threads on here and put into that ridge where it needs to be sealed. So I tried. I had bought one from Flywheeler Supply, mashed it, rolled it with a piece of pipe, tried to crush it to anything to get it to roll over this, and it just ain't gonna happen. The only thing left maybe is to, cut it and try to seal it. It just won't work. I talked to Paul, who put one of these motors together, and they haven't had any luck sealing it with all kinds of different solutions for the last 2 years. So here's an original. You can see it's thinner. It's just basically a piece of copper. This will actually thread over, and when it fits right in there, and it crushes down and seals it up. These newer ones are quite a bit thicker, and you can't get them threaded on. They're too fat and all that. So he was nice enough to give me a number of a company that's actually local in Minnesota that does custom copper work. And I talked to the guy, and he's willing to do a small run of them. He's got a laser table. So again, another piece that doesn't exist that has to be made from scratch. So had everything gone together, I probably would have never been able to get that sealed. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we have some success with that and I get a run of them and we can move on. So here are the rest of the progress clips, and then the next thing will probably be the Albany show. Any of you guys that are local or border state and you like early gas, you need to make it there. You're never going to see that amount of 20s and pre-20s tractors in one spot again. It's insane. I was up there last night bringing something, so catch you. Had one last piece to machine on these wrist pins. Since they don't float, they have oiling holes in them that's supposed to drip from the top, through the top of the connecting rod. And on the bottom, they have reliefs cut in them so that the oil can lubricate where the wrist pin sits in the piston. And since these were blanks, and we had to machine the holes in them, we're over here cutting them with an end mill so the oil can get in there. These are extremely hard. these need to be cleaned up a little bit yet and deburred. But from 2 examples that I pulled out, one was flat and another had a groove cut in it, like they use an abrasive wheel. So as long as it has the ability to trap oil, I guess that's all we're looking for. Time to get some stuff done. Pistons are mounted, they need rings yet. Wrist pins are in, they have to be set up so the oilers are on the bottom. Drips from the top, runs in through there. That's the only thing that lubricates the wrist pin, and they're slightly biased, so you gotta pay real attention which way they go. These originally had fold over locks in them, so I made some, started folding them. We got one to go. We'll do one of these, and we'll take one last look at the Babbitt. So I showed you in the last video that there's these spots for pooling. They actually pool oil in there, and then there's through holes, and then there's hand cut grooves across the top that make the oil run to lubricate the whole journal. And then there's grooves cut here, so then it catches on the bottom of the cap and that oils the whole surface. This one has 2, that one has 1, but it'll travel across. So final clean, time to start throwing this stuff together. I'm out here today prepping for heart surgery, and I uncovered a little more history. Hitting this thing with a power washer, I now know the name of the museum that this was at. Owned by the House of Yesteryear. Paint literally blasted right off. A couple other things. I know the wheels are supposed to be red. Got some red paint there. I think the undercarriage and steering stuff, you can see there's red there. Some red here, and someday this will be a full restoration and be done correctly. Don't know how long that'll be, but the one thing I'm wondering, and Paul, aka Rock Island Heider, got a question for you. As we peel through the layers of paint, on the inner one here, we see what looks to be the correct Rock Island color, and then the museum or an owner afterwards had painted this like a hunter green. But on the outside rail, the base paint is silver. Now I know some of these had silver tanks and radiators and things of that nature, so I'm wondering if this was possibly, the beams were possibly original silver, or if they used some sort of primer or something. Here you can see, we'll go into the sun, that's the actual bare steel color. But on the outside rail, there's definitely silver under all the other stuff. So, decisions. This is just 40-weight oil. I thought about putting break-in oil in there, but I was worried about the viscosity of it because I don't know how hot this gets or if it would get in the passages and plug it up. The end caps are easy to see how they're oriented because of the thrust surface, and this cap has it on both sides, but there's a stamping on it. Gives you the orientation so the numbers go the same way. thrust surface on this side. I've already pulled this up to about 40 foot-pounds. There is no torque spec for this. It literally says tight but not too tight, which I would say tight means that you can hold your rotating assembly in without pieces flying, and too tight would be pulling these studs out of the rotten aluminum. And what the actual book says for setting up the shims are pull a shim out, crank it down, spin it. You should feel some drag, but not too much. If it's too tight to move the crank, take the caps back off and pull a shim out. These have already been set. I'm setting them again just to make sure everything is good. Feels okay. I think we'll go 45, maybe 50. They are fine thread nuts, and they will be safety wired. I actually have actual stainless aircraft safety wire from an airline. Thanks, Dave. Guy I work with gave it to me. So we're gonna crank this down, try to squeeze probably 5 more pounds out of it, see how it feels. You see me tap that cap on. These studs are really close together and they kind of bind slightly. It wasn't hitting on the thrust surface, and I put the crank gear on, and that was a really tight press fit. I ended up icing the crank, heating this, and driving it on tight to the journal, and it clears without any problem.